You just killed a bull. It's like the second year you've ever archery hunted.
I'm like, you need to go give Cheryl a hug first.
No kidding, dude. Cheryl's the freaking ball, man. Like, that dude knows how to scout and get things done.
Dude, that was sick. I texted my wife. I was like, I'm feeling lucky tonight. Yeah, I kept thinking it's gonna happen because I kept hearing those breathing. I was like,
Welcome to the Cuttercast Vlogcast. My name is Seth Larson, and thank you so much for tuning in wherever you might be, whether you're watching this or listening to it. I greatly appreciate it. It means the world to me. I hope you're enjoying them, and I can't believe there's actually a couple people out there listening to it. It's pretty cool. Or watching it and enjoying it. So I hope you are, and please share it with as many people as you think would enjoy as well. Now, on today's episode, I sit down with John, Father Wisdom, my father, and the one and only tag filling machine, Jason Gruber. Now, Jason has only been hunting for 3 years, and he's only been archery hunting for 2 of those 3, and he's already punched a couple tags. He's kind of lucky, and it even gets better. Yeah, he filled his last tag last weekend. It was a limited entry archery elk tag here in the state of Utah. He drew it with 2 points. Well, technically the fishing game called him and asked him if he wanted a tag, and he was wise enough to say yes. Now, we're gonna recap his hunt, and it was an incredible experience. He killed an awesome bull. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Now, before we do that though, I wanna remind you that we're doing a giveaway in conjunction with the last episode we had. We're giving away a canvas cutter burrow duffel and a pair of sheep feet, and all you have to do is go follow Sheep Feet on their Instagram page. Make sure you're subscribed to the Canvas Cutter YouTube, and make sure you're following the Cuttercast on whatever podcast platform you choose to use. You do that, you get yourself automatically entered to win. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you're feeling lucky because Jason was.
Yeah, the tequila ones, I'm telling you, there's like a near beer flavor to those.
I haven't had beer or alcohol, so I haven't picked that up, but
I have, and I don't get it.
The one that
it tastes weird to me.
The one
I don't know what it is.
The one
it's like
that you
soap.
gave me going out, that had a little bit of a.
That was this one.
A little
the
bit
tequila.
of a beer
fermented
click.
Kiwi.
Well, it says on there tequila kiwi.
Tequila.
Okay, that's fine, but
Maybe it is.
We're starting to cut hairs here.
well, yeah,
You guys ready?
sure. Ready.
Landon, we're rolling.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the Cutter Podcast, Cutter family. We actually are breaking ground to new heights today on the Cuttercast. For the first time ever, we are using all mics. We've got 4 mics. We got John, Father Wisdom, and Jason Gruber.
Yep,
not
new
to
guy.
be mistook with Gerber.
Or Mick Gruber.
Or Gruber. It's just straight up Gruber.
Yep.
But Jason Gruber, we're going to talk about an experience we all shared, but it was because of Jason that we shared. It was pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited to get into it. Jason, you've been fishing, fly fishing and like more like
spin.
rod and reel fishing.
Yeah, I grew up fishing most of my life, but I probably didn't get into it a whole lot until
Like seriously.
early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I picked up more fly fishing. But
And then you and John started working together and then ultimately started a company together, Everlast. And it's not a male enhancement company. You guys do glass.
We do both. People that watch us install the glass get male enhancement.
yeah,
You guys do glass and granite, surrounds and showers and hardware in homes, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So if you guys do new construction, but you also do remodels, right?
Yeah, we do a bunch of remodels, mostly new construction though.
Okay, well, if you guys want legit granite and glass done in a very professional manner, which I recommend because the people who did my shower surround were on drugs because it was not level, and then they came to re-level it and only tiled over the unlevel tile. So it was super special in the shower. That's no good. So if you want it done right, call Everlast. They'll get it done. That's how it's working. So you guys met and started fishing a lot together.
Yeah.
During and after.
Yeah, when we first started, I was going to school, and we didn't have a ton of work, so we filled that time with fishing.
Yep.
Our wives didn't know all the time.
Those are good times.
It worked out.
It's true. There was times we fished a little too often, but it was fun.
And
it was good.
And then recently, you started hunting. So 3 years. It's 3 years ago now. I remember John was telling me that you had a deer tag, and he was going to take you to a spot that we've gone for deer. It's not known to have a lot of deer or even big deer, but there's usually an okay buck or two in there and a bunch of small ones. So it gives you a good opportunity. And you actually went in and you guys had a successful hunt. You got a mule deer. But where did you make that transition from doing a ton of fishing, experiencing the outdoors through fishing and camping and maybe doing a little mountain biking to wanting to hunt? What made you want to get into hunting?
So I think it came down to John had been hunting his whole life, and he went out with you guys a bunch. So I heard a lot of his stories about hunting and telling me how good, deer and elk and all this game meat was. And so what it ended up being is the tag I got was the, the trial.
Yeah, you did the trial hunter program.
Yeah, so I didn't officially have my, hunter safety or anything at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a tag, and so one day, we were coming back from Salt Lake from my job, and I was like, so should we go hunting tomorrow? And went up and got it done. But that experience is what completely hooked me. I'd never experienced anything like that. It was just...
So it was just curiosity from hearing John talking about his experience to maybe I want to try that. And here in Utah, for those of you who don't know or have it in your state, we do have a 2-year, almost apprenticeship or mentoring where somebody without their hunter education, as they're working on that, can go out hunting with somebody who has a license and who has their hunter safety, right, and mentor them into hunting.
You can only, I'm pretty sure you can't get an elk tag with that. You can just get
just the general season
just the
deer.
general season deer.
Yep.
And you did that, and
I did it. I was hooked. It was the craziest experience. And we got pretty lucky because we went up there in one day and got it done. It was a small little 3x4, but man, that's
awesome.
It was unreal. And the meat was amazing too. I hadn't really had much meat, like deer meat or anything up
what
to that
did
point.
What did you do with it? Like steaks and burger? Or?
Yeah, steaks, burger, and jerky.
Awesome.
And my kids and my wife loved it. And I was worried. I was like, I don't know if they're going to like this, but they all loved it.
That's awesome.
So that was even more motivation. Let's keep this going. Let's get more meat every year if I can.
Yeah. I like that too. It forces you to get out. I can't have my wife and kids going hungry during the winter, right? They need meat.
Yep.
So I'm like, sorry, dear, I've got to go out. But then we're getting into archery, and 2 years ago, John and I were checking out some new bows. You came down to the bow shop, and were shooting bows with us, and ended up getting yourself a bow. Yep. Started shooting archery. Not successful the first year archery hunting, kind of just going for anything really. And Father Wisdom had his mule deer tag, and so we were all spending a lot of time on the Oak Creeks chasing mule deer. But this year, something unique happened.
Yep.
You had been putting in for elk. You had 2 elk points, and the fishing game called you and asked you if you wanted a limited entry archery elk tag, big bull tag.
It was on a Friday. They called, and I was like, and they said, you have 24 hours, but it's the weekend, so you can wait until Monday. And so I I told John, I was like, well, check this out. They just called me, and he's like, yeah, you got to do it. And in my mind, I was like, I only have 2 points, and even though I felt a little underprepared for the whole thing, I was like, I can't not do it. It's too good not to do it. So.
Yeah, as soon as it was my daughter's birthday party, and John's like, yeah, the fishing game just gave Jason a tag. I was like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we're doing that for sure. Especially like 2 points. You've been putting in for 2 years. Any limited entry tag like that is like, yes, please.
Yeah, it's almost a free tag. So
I had to relinquish my over-the-counter one, and then they gave me the limited entry.
You had bought.
Yep.
Now before that, Father Wisdom and I, Dad, we went out into a spot that you had discovered a year before, and we had seen some good bucks in it late in the year, and it's just like this haven of elk country. And so you and I went in there earlier this year to throw up cameras, which we did. We got there's a bunch of water we threw up cameras on. And then you went to a spot that you hunted for a long time but had like a 10-year hiatus, this spike camp spot. Why were you put up a camera in there just like you were bored one day and went up there, but what were you going in there to, why were you putting a camera there? Because that comes into play.
After last year, the Oak Creeks, of sort of not knowing as much as I would have wanted to, I know within the next few years that I'll draw a limited entry elk tag. So I just wanted to go back into some of these places that used to have elk and start doing some research, finding out where the water is at, what time the bulls come in of the year, and just get real knowledgeable on it. And so me and you went out the one time, and then I was just talking to somebody, and they asked me about this place I used to go, and I thought, well, I haven't been there in a few years. So I just went up there, threw in some cell cameras, and lo and behold, and then me and you went up and glassed.
Yeah, we did.
And seen some
a pretty good buck.
Yeah,
and got me excited.
And just started looking around, and we decided that we probably some pretty decent bulls were showing up on cameras, and that maybe in the future that would be a place that would pay off.
Yeah.
And then we found out that Jason had drew a tag.
Yeah, and most of our scouting was kind of for mule deer now, because we both have mule deer tags, but really for the future, for the future of when we draw bull tags and when Luke and Fakir and stuff to come in and do a lot of hunting. And then Jason just pops this tag and happens to be for this area. We're like, score! Because we did have a couple good bulls hitting that camera.
That's what's crazy, too, is, I mean, they give you, when they called me, it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks before the hunt. So typically it's like, here's a tag if you want it, but you've had no time over the summer to look, explore, and that's where, you guys, that saved the day. You'd already done all this work, and then it just panned out perfect.
And what's super interesting... Oh, sorry, John.
I was just going to say it was really lucky that he put in for the tag where you guys were already scouting.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that is super lucky, because there's a lot of units you could put in for. Yeah. But what's also cool is we in the first spot there wasn't much of value hunting wise in hitting any of the cameras. Like, it was really just in this spike camp spot that we had a bull that got us all really excited. And whether or not we've even seen that bull, I think we have. But whether or not we have, it's like, I don't know. And they move so much before that pre-rut. I mean, he could be 30 miles away by the time the hunt starts going to wherever he goes to rut. And so before the hunt started, we decided we're going to focus in on that area where that bull is. And it is a jaunt to get in there. And so we e-biked cases of water in there. we took in, Jason had a tent, we had our summits, Father Wisdom had a summit and brought a tent, and like we took all this food for the hunt, and then every time we went in there, it was like a 4-mile e-bike or for Father Wisdom. He was trekking it on foot, in and out of there. And what's interesting is we went in there and didn't hear a ton. There was a few bugles that one night that you and I were sitting at the top of that canyon. And so that was kind of exciting. But we didn't see a lot. I guess we did have the experience of the herd of elk right underneath our camp.
Yeah, that's true.
Ginormous herd of elk. And we woke up and they're literally like right below our camp. Within
like
100 yards, maybe.
150?
Yeah.
200 elk?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A crazy amount.
Crazy amount of elk right there. A raghorn and then a decent bull that John and I never saw, but you saw him.
Yeah, he was a good bull.
And wind kind of messed the situation up there, and they busted out. But the next time we went in there, John, Dad, and I were able to go in a day before you got there, and of course the person with the tag's not there, and we saw like 3 for sure shooter bulls, like for sure without question, like well over like 350 and higher bulls, and all in scenarios where you could have put a play on them.
Yeah.
But our confidence was building because you were coming the next day and they were all within an area, and you came in, and that first day, that's the day where you guys went across the canyon from us. John and I called in a raghorn. He was super desperate for some loving, and he dropped down the whole canyon and came up about 20 yards from us. And you guys had a play on a smaller bull and some raghorns.
Yeah, that morning we had that first play, right, on that.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that. Yeah, we did.
So,
you guys did get in close with a 5x6.
Yeah.
Well, when I biked in that morning, you guys were already at camp, and I was biking in. I heard some bugling, and then I happened to see a pretty decent bull, like a 5x6. But then we made it up to camp, and then that's when.
And there was a big bull right underneath camp again.
Yes,
there was a group of cows and a really good
Jason
6-point, right under camp.
Yep. So we'd been next to that canyon. We'd heard bugling like almost every time we were there.
Yep.
And then that's where well, let's drop down there. And you said, I'll do some cow calls, and you guys drop down in. And
me and Dad held back.
Yep.
And we would call because it was like there's this barrier of cover to where they're in Quakies and it's open. They can see a little bit, and then it's really thick oak brush, and then it's wide open sagebrush. And I don't think they like to come out into the open. So I figured if we were out in the open calling and you broke that barrier of cover, you would at least get to see what it is, what this bull is that's bugling down there.
Yeah.
So if you guys went into there and me and Dad held back and did some calling, hopefully it would bring him over and he would be talking so you'd know where he was at. And if it was a good bull, you'd have a play. But what happened? Tell us.
It was exciting. So it worked just like you said. We went into that cover, like the aspens, and you were maybe a couple hundred yards behind us?
Yeah.
And so as soon as we went in, it was returning. You would do these cow calls, and we'd hear it do kind of a bugle. And so we were creeping closer and closer. And at that point, the wind was pretty good.
Yeah. Our wind was good the whole time in. So
yeah. But anyways, we were getting closer, and we got to the point. And in my mind, I was hearing these bugles thinking, it's still like 100 yards. And John's like, no, it's getting close. Like, we're getting close. Like, you should, knock an arrow. So I had an arrow knocked, but then we kept getting closer, heard another one of your calls. And at this point, I'm trying to remember is that when we first saw it and you were like, get closer, get ready.
Yeah, I was saying get ready, because I could see his legs coming through and up. And so I was like, get ready, and I kind of sat down. And I don't think Jason knew what I meant when I was saying get ready. Like, get ready to draw. If you see him come behind the trees, draw when his head's behind the trees. I should have explained it a lot better. Because we did have a little bit of time, but it also happened. Like, when I saw those legs coming, he was steadily moving
And it's so crazy how fast they move. Like they take 10 steps, and it's like, whoa.
Covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So he basically popped out right in front of us, and at that point, Jason didn't really have time to draw back. He pegged us pretty as soon as he came from behind the trees, so it was quick, and he spun. And
had Jason been able to draw beforehand, was there a shot there, or was he?
Wasn't it 41 yards? Slightly downhill from us.
It was about 40 yards. Yeah, he would have had. It was an open shot, but it was like a smaller 5x6. He was pretty weak on his 5 side. Like his third was.
It was the
pretty
same.
Small,
it was the exact same bull that I had
seen
saw when
in
I
a different canyon
that I was riding in that morning.
Earlier that morning.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Because it had a unique left side, like John said, his 5, and it was the exact same bull.
Yeah, he was a decent bull, but not Jason's bull. So
it's not Jason's
it was a good.
bull.
So it was a good rookie learning moment because in my mind, distinctly, it was like, well, I'm not pulling back until I know like it's an elk that I'm going to shoot. But I was dead wrong. Like, pull back. If it's not one that's worth shooting or you don't want to shoot or whatever, just don't.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was like the big learning moment for me right there is, if you know something's coming in, it happens fast, and then just pull back, get ready at least.
Yeah. And that it's that evening that John and I called in that raghorn, but then there was a small. Wasn't it a 5x6?
I think it might have been the same bull.
It was frustrating because we looked up with our 10s, and it was a bull chasing off a raghorn, and the bull that was chasing the raghorn looked like a solid bull. I was like, that's our big 6 point. And then we sat there and glassed, and we're like, well, there's a raghorn and a small bull. Where'd the big one go? And either we totally misjudged with our 10s, which is a possibility.
Yeah.
Or that one drifted off somewhere. But you guys were on that side of the canyon already coming up, so we tried to let you know where they were at, but you ended up getting pegged by that raghorn and a raghorn we couldn't see that was lower in that just wouldn't let you guys move.
Well, we had really good wind on us.
Yes.
So we were slowly creeping forward, but they weren't really skittish. They weren't taking off really fast until we realized.
I know there was something there, but they couldn't figure it out.
But meanwhile, we saw a really good bull on your side of the canyon, going right towards camp.
Yeah,
and we're like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, right below camp.
Yeah, it was too late, and so we're like, "Oh man, we're on the wrong side."
Every day we do these death marches, only to have elk 200 yards below our camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was special. We never learned from it.
But that night was cool. They started getting active. We saw quite a few coming out of that canyon. Mm-hmm. We saw that big one. You guys saw them over by us.
Yeah, we bumped into a raghorn and a bunch of cows and 2 does on the way up.
So that was a good evening.
And then we all had to get home for work the next day, ideally. But we thought we'd give it a try that morning. Had some elk come across a road in front of us. Didn't really pan out, but we were headed down these ridges. There's these bowls, and we kept hearing bugles, and then all of a sudden it sounded like they were in the next one. And we'd go to the next one, and then they would just be peeking over into the next one. So finally we bailed down to a spot we had seen where elk funnel out of. So we're like, well, maybe we can cut them off. We get down there, and sure enough, there's 3 bulls in this canyon, and one's a stud 5x6.
Yep.
And he ends up bedding down, but not in a position that was conducive for stalking.
It's Fort Knox.
It was insane. Tough. Yeah. So we were thinking, well, you could get in closer, and we could try calling. The hard thing, though, with the early hunt on elk that we have here in Utah is they'll be bugling, but they're not fired up enough to react to calls, to come in. Or if you bugle, they don't want to fight. They're not in a fighting mood. They're just hey, what's up, ladies? I'm here. But they're not get this is my territory, Yeah. So I didn't know how much that would work. And then you were getting your stuff together so we could at least do something. And he got up and was headed up the canyon. And we thought maybe he'll go up and over. And if so, you can haul up there and maybe potentially cut him off.
Right.
But he went up like 200 yards only to then turn around and come all the way down.
Yeah.
And there's no way he winded us. It wasn't like he saw us.
Yeah, and he was heading up, and that other bull that was bedded got up and went down, and it looked like he just followed him straight down.
Oh, hey, Ted, where are you going?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But that was a sweet bull, and we ended up going out of there. But in the meantime, I think it was that day, Father Wisdom was getting some intel that maybe we should try that other spot.
Yes. The bulls had, it's pretty interesting, had cell cameras there all summer and no bulls. There was a couple herds of cows, but no bulls at all.
Yeah,
some spikes.
Yeah, no bulls. That's
and
the crazy thing.
And after like the 1st of August, some raghorns started moving in, and then like when the hunt started, finally some mature bulls started moving in, and I'm thinking, maybe we ought to scoot over there and just check it out. It's a death march, but
yeah,
it might pay off.
It might pay off. And there was a wallow that you had a camera on that was consistently being hit by okay to good bulls.
Yeah.
And so
a few things that I learned is like over in our first scout or spike camp is the bulls would hit the cameras and then I'd never see them again. Yeah. And I felt like that, okay, they're migrating to where they had the year before. So in the next place that we went to, Paradise, sort of the same thing. They'd hit a camera and then, boom, they'd never show back up. So I'm just thinking, okay, maybe they're migrating through. But this one particular canyon always had new mature bulls coming in to wallow. And so I told Jason maybe we ought to take a couple of days and scoot over there and just check it out.
Yeah, and we made a plan that the coming weekend we'd go spend a couple days over there and see what happens, just because. And side note, but one that I think is important to make is I think we've learned through the past couple years, but especially this year, outside of knowing that a bull of a certain caliber was there, pre-scouting an early elk hunt is almost worthless.
Yes.
Because you could just go there and glass and find a bull and then go after it. Because we had bulls that hit the camera once or twice and then never appeared again.
Yeah, so
and we've never seen again. And we had good bulls hitting cameras in completely different spots, like stud bulls, and right when the hunt started, they just never came back. Like, they never came back, and we never saw them. So it was good to know, like, well, that caliber of bulls in this area, but he could be 50 miles away now.
So
and
the argument with cell cameras or cameras period is, I've learned this year, with elk, they're useless because those guys are migrating around. They're trying to find their herd.
They're moving so much.
They move so much that really cameras are, it lets you know, oh, he was here.
Yeah.
But he could be 5 canyons over. But so anyway, in this one canyon, we had consistent mature bulls
hitting this wallow. So we're like, let's go try it. And you had went in, we were going to try to do like a Friday, Saturday, and you had gone in Thursday, packed in like 80 pounds, filled these 2 buckets full, packed in a whole camp, checked a few spots, feeling pretty good. Emily has an elk tag, and your brother Matt had a tag, and we decided instead of waking up at like 3:34 to get up there early enough, we would just do the work we needed to do and go in that night. So Emily and Matt and I ended up getting there around 1, and then we got to your camp at like 2:30. And it's, for those listening or watching, the hike in is special. Like it's about 1,500 feet according to the map, in a third of a mile.
Yeah.
So you're just like, when you're climbing the hill in front of you, you can touch it like it's like 1.5 feet in front of you. It's super steep. But once you get once you get that third of a mile, it's like
it's not horrible. I was literally like kept laughing the whole way up, just because like how steep. And then we hit this false summit, and I looked back at Jason. I just started laughing because he hadn't seen the false summit yet.
I assumed it was a false summit.
Yeah. Well, and Matt was like, you and I know that he was worried before. He kept asking us, like, well, how hard's the hike? Like, I'm in the worst shape I've ever been in. And that night, he's like, how hard do you think, like, how long is it? Is it like this spot? And I was like, no, it's probably steeper than that, but it won't be bad. They got the benefit of doing it in the dark. Yeah. So there was no false summit. They just kept asking me, like, how much further? And from the get-go, I said, not that much longer, like, we're almost there. And then an hour in, they're like, how much longer? And I'm like, we are almost there. And 200 more yards, and we'll be to the top. So they couldn't even see it. So, like, when we were packing out, Emily was like, whoa, this is what we came up. I was like, yeah.
When you get to the top of that canyon to drop off, it's really intense, especially when you got a heavy pack on.
Mm-hmm. So we got in there significantly colder than I was expecting. Like, seeing our breath once we got to the top, and then once we got to where Dad had set up camp, like, the dew was so thick you could see everywhere you walked. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great, because I brought the lightest bag I have. Because, I mean, up at that spike camp, the weather was superb. Just slept with the mesh on the summit, and it was nice. But it was chilly. But we woke up. We went and set some water, Emily and I. Dad and Matt went and set some water. You guys got up there, sent a flurry of texts of, like, that was not an hour. There was a false summit. That was horrible. Blah, 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 blah. But nothing really panned out in the morning. I did have another hunter, like, Emily's like, I think John's coming. She's like, oh, wait, no, he doesn't walk like John. She's like, I don't know who that is. So I look around and I get my binos, and it's just this other hunter, fully camoed, like ninja style, arrow knocked, just like trucking up to us. And he gets up by the water where we're sitting, and I'm like, I put my hand up, and he just comes trucking past us, like no further than 3 feet. We're sitting in this thistle patch because we blended in really good with it. And Emily's like trying to sniff, and I'm like, and he goes about 50 yards, sits down, gets his bow ready, and he's sitting there. So I cow chirped, and he's like, looks over at me, and then he smiles and waves and comes by. He was a nice guy. He informed us he's the guy that people talk about, that walks by other people and doesn't notice that they're even there. But nothing really transpired that morning for any of us.
No.
Matt decided to continue sitting the water he was sitting. We came back to camp and regrouped. Decided we were going to go to this wallow that's in the furthest canyon away, but that was being consistently hit by good bulls. And the walk there wasn't bad.
No.
Like, I thought we got there fairly fast, and we even stopped and took a delightful nap.
Mm-hmm. Some
long grass. And it was so good. Other than I couldn't take my contacts out because I didn't think that I had my contact holder, and it turned out I did the whole time. But I fell asleep and woke up with dry contacts. It was special.
Looking like Willie Nelson the rest of the
time. And so we make our way up there, and up this canyon, there's just like wallow after wallow after wallow after wallow. There's like 15 wallows before you get to where we have a camera over this wallow. So we know, like, elk are for sure hitting this one. And there's elk starting to bugle further up in the canyon, but very faintly. And we're all deciding where we're going to set up. And I knew priority A was Jason with his limited entry, and he needed to be closer to the wallow than us because we're not going after a big bull. Emily was going to shoot a spike, maybe a cow if she was feeling it. So we decided to set up just below the wallow where there's like a nice feeding area. So if the bull's up there wallowing and he comes in with a herd, a spike on the edge of the herd would be over by us, or those cows would feed through right there, and it was downwind. It was perfect, and we'd be out of the way for what you were doing, which I don't fully regret, but I kind of do, because it didn't allow me to fully film the experience that we're doing. And then, Dad, you set up on the other side of the canyon.
I wanted to go over to the other side to where all these wallows that we had previously, where I could watch the other hill and these wallows, in case something happened to come in down there, I could text and say, hey, they're down below us, and maybe somebody scoot down that way. And I could somewhat see a little up, but I could pretty much see the other hillsides in case something was coming in, if I could stay awake.
Yeah, you did have a doe feed above you, and then a doe blew out with me and Emily, her and her fawn, and they came past you so close. I was like, when is she gonna wind? When is she gonna wind? And they just came pilling right by you, like so close. It was awesome. But you guys set up, I thought you were further up on the ridge, but you guys weren't. Like, Jason, you were right by the wallow. Like,
Yeah, there was some, like, I don't know, was scrub oak stuff right off the wallow, like 18 yards. And Jason sat there, and then I sat behind him, kind of angled back, probably like 10 yards from him.
Yeah, I wish we would have been.
What time did we get to it? Was it around 5?
Yeah, 4-ish.
I think it was 4-ish.
Yeah, because it was still pretty warm, and the sun was still pretty high. And the elk weren't talking a whole lot. It was like we heard a bugle clear up there.
Yeah.
But the longer we sat there, then it was like, bugle. Oh, a bugle over here. Oh, a bugle closer. And the one bull that never came in, well, maybe it was the one that came in, but there was one that sounded like he was behind us, and he sounded like he was getting closer and closer. Like, I remember I shot you a text like, whoa, he's coming in. Because I think your bull sounded, the last time I heard a bull from the direction he came at least, was clear up. Like, it was up there still a ways.
Yeah.
But we were sitting there, a lot of daydreaming of what could happen. I'm ranging all these trees for Emily, and she's like solid to 30, like solid. She told me she didn't want to shoot to 40. She just wasn't confident. And I was like, well, you don't have to shoot at all, right? If it's not a shot and you don't want to take it, or you draw back and it just doesn't feel, then just don't shoot. And so ranged all those trees and doing some daydreaming. The elk are bugling a lot more, and Emily's like, hey, Seth, like, something's walking down the road. And I look over, I was like, that's a bull. It's a bull elk. And he's just like strolling down the road, just like he's the boss. And he comes strolling down, so I get my camera, I'm like fumbling. But I was concerned with the sun. It was in our eyes, and I was concerned that if I got the camera like where I actually really needed it to film him come in, I didn't want him to see the glare or the reflection of it. So I kind of just filmed him quickly and then put it down. I didn't want to mess up the opportunity. So I put it down, and he came in. I watched him come all the way in and turn, and the wallow is so deep that when he turned to go into it, he disappeared for us. And I was just like, I told Emily when he was coming, when he got off the road and started coming through the grass, I said, Jason's going to smoke this bull. and Emily was just like, I want to see. I want to see. It was like, yeah, just hold still, don't move. Because a couple times, like, he would look directly down, and that's what we saw. You guys didn't see that. You guys saw him come into the wall, and that's where your story began.
Yeah. So the bush that I was sitting behind, I mean, it gave me good cover, maybe a little too much. But leading up to this, I mean, we were there for 2 hours, right?
Oh, at least, yeah.
No, I guess 2.5, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe 3. And I'd been hearing these bugles, you know. Mind you, where I decided to set up camp, there was this nice ant trail. So I had these ants constantly going up.
Were they the big black ones?
Yes,
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, we had some of those, too.
I'm like So I'm antsy. Like, I'm not just like sitting back relaxing. I'm on my knees, and I'm like putting grass down to sit on that to avoid the ants. And I did practice like drawing back on my knees because honestly I'd never done that up to this point. I was like, I'll draw back real quick. I had an arrow knocked. And, I was ranging, same thing, like some like rocks that were next to kind of like that trail, some bushes. And so for me, I'd shot my bow. I felt comfortable maybe up to 50, like pretty confident. But ideally it was going to be like around 35. So that's basically where I'd set it, was right at 35, thinking like, oh, if an elk comes, of course I'm going to see it on the road, right? Not the road, the trail. And so it was set at 35, but I didn't lock it. I wanted to be able to adjust it easy and quick if I needed to. And so I had the bow kind of in front of me at the base of the bush, and I texted you guys a couple of times like, I'm hearing these bugles. Should we go closer? And Cheryl's like, no, stay. Like, don't move. Yeah. Which was very wise. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting was you had mentioned too that the elk had been hitting that wallow usually around 7. And I'd even texted, and so with the way the wind was, it was perfect going. We heard the calls up above us in the canyon, and we were downwind from that, and it was constant. Like, not even really thermals, almost just like a light. You could see the clouds moving. Yeah. And so I was, like, feeling really good about the wind, like, for once, because we had some struggles in the past. Like, the wind seems to not be
very consistent.
Yes.
Elk above us, but moving our direction. And it was great.
Yep. And I'd also asked Cheryl, like, is there any water above this? Because, I'm hearing, I'm like, well, are they up there just chilling and that's going to be the end of it? And he said, no, like, there's nothing. And so I was like, okay, things are lining up real good because they're probably going to come down to this water. It's the closest. Yeah. And I'd even texted my wife saying, like, hey, I'm feeling lucky tonight. And that was maybe around 6 or so. But anyway, so I was, staying behind that bush. John was up behind me, 8 yards?
About that. I had my boots had leaked, so I had my socks off. They were drying out.
He was just living the life.
I was looking up behind me thinking like,
John's naked up there, just sunbathing.
It looked like John was napping.
Has a drink out.
But so I remember I texted. There was something I think I'd maybe even asked you, John, like some question I couldn't remember, but so we're sitting there, and I'm behind the bush, and right around 7, I think is when it was. I just hear kind of some like soft, kind of like stomps, stepping, 3 or 4 steps. And luckily, the wind had kind of died down enough that I could hear it.
Because it would gust a few times.
Exactly. If it had been gusting, I might not have even heard it. Now that I think about that, but I heard that, and I was like, "Is that what's happening?" And I just barely kind of peek through this bush, and I can see from my perspective, like, that's a single bull elk, and it is coming right at me, right at this wallow. Because I'm only from the wallow itself, I'm maybe like 14, 15 yards.
Yeah,
and then maybe towards the back of the wallow, it's like 20. But so I see it, and so I reach around, kind of my bow's maybe kind of more towards the side of the front of the bush. So I reach around and slowly just like bring it over, like stretching, bringing it over. And then at the same time, I already had an arrow knocked, and then I quickly like dial it all the way back to 20 because this guy's
he's going to be close.
He's super close.
I can't believe you thought of that, because when I've had like a slider sight, I regularly forget to dial back, especially in the moment like that. Like, it's an intense thing. Like, adrenaline's going.
I mean,
and to be conscious enough to be like, okay, he's close, like dial it back. Like, that's really good.
And I mean, there was a few things that I'd kind of done in prep of this that was part of me just feeling lucky. Like, I got to be prepared, drawing back, just like seeing what it'd be like to even, shoot from my knees. But so I dialed it back, and I never locked it back. And that was another thing that, like, it's kind of a tight lock on the slider. Mm-hmm. So I dialed it back to 20, and then I drew back. And ironically, leading up to this, I'd looked up several times, like, frontal shots. Like, where do you shoot? Watch some videos, just in case. I didn't want to have an elk.
Well, he could potentially be 14 to 17 yards away.
Yeah.
Extremely close.
Yep. And I didn't want to have an opportunity where I've got an elk looking at me and potentially, hey, I should be able to do a frontal shot, but I don't even know where to shoot. I didn't want that to be a scenario. So I'd looked up and felt comfortable, like, okay, where to shoot. And I knew under 20 yards I could easily get in that spot, hopefully. It's a decent size. But so I drew back, and I'm peeking around this bush, and I'm on my knees, and I remember John before this hunt.
Were you watching at this point?
No.
Did you see him draw?
No.
You were still sunbathing and drinking.
Where I was,
listening.
I was getting my socks back on.
Yeah, and but John had mentioned before this, like, hey, when the time comes, like, you're going to have a lot of adrenaline. It's going to be crazy. Don't forget to look through your peep, right?
Yep.
And I do remember pulling back, and I don't know what you'd call it. You've got the peep and then the housing.
Yeah.
And I do remember, like, seeing the housing and be like, nope, get them lined up, get them good. And so the elk, the wallow's kind of deep, so he's actually looking down into the water almost, like comes in real slow at that moment, and then starting to drink water, and I have no shot. Like, he's quartering way tight, almost looking at me, and his head's at an angle. So there's no shot opportunity at that point. But he's kind of slowly making it in, and now I'm kind of to the edge of the bush, and he looks at me. But he makes this kind of low, weird, not like it was a weird bugle. I think at that point is when others realize, like, whoa.
Yeah, that's when I knew something was there at that point, because I was just behind the bush, and I had heard something, but I didn't want to peek around and spook anything. So, when I heard that, I kind of looked around, and I think that's right when he took his first shot.
Yeah, and honestly, when this is happening,
well, didn't he screamed in
he did
bugled pretty good.
He did a bugle, but before that bugle, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know that anyone else here even knows what's happening. And I wasn't about to look back at John.
Yeah.
I was just focused, but it was like, I don't know. Or I was like, maybe everyone's watching me, and that adds to being nervous. But come to find out, no one's even seeing this first shot.
I know he's there, but we are so afraid to look over and have him catch our movement that I just kept telling Emily, just don't move.
Yeah.
Let's just stay here. Don't move.
So anyways, I don't have a shot, and then he does actually come into the wall a little bit more to where I have an okay shot, but then he's looking right at me, and I still don't know exactly what happened, but either way, it was like I shot, and he did some gymnastics out of this wallow,
straight
so
up Matrix.
Fast. Yes.
Yeah.
And I completely missed. And so he comes out of the wallow, but he still hadn't winded me. He just didn't know what was going on.
Which is funny because Emily's like, I think Jason just shot. And I arrogantly was like, no. I think he may have winded us. But then I was like, why is he just standing there? Because he busted out the wallow, and we saw Emily's like, I think he just shot. And I was like, I look over and the elk's above the wall, and I'm like, no, I think he just winded us.
Well, I shot, and I missed.
I was wrong.
But here's the thing, too. When I shot, it looked like I was dead on. Part of me thought that I had hit him. I wasn't entirely sure. So in my mind was I shot. I don't know if it struck the elk or not. It just moved so fast that I immediately knocked another arrow, right away. And drew back again behind the bush on my knees.
So smart.
So he hopped out of the wallow, and then he kind of turned around and was almost facing my same direction again. Because he hadn't winded me. He just didn't know what was going on. He was confused.
Yeah.
I was confused. But so I drew back, and at that point, I just slowly, and he's like completely on the other side of the bush. So I had no chance on my knees to make any shot. So I was like, I got to stand up. So the angle I was facing, I stood up as slow as I could, and I was drawn back and had to make kind of like a 90-degree turn to then be facing him. So at that point, drawn back, I'm looking through the sight. I'm still dialed 20. I haven't changed that. And he's looking at me, but once again, a super tight quartering to shot that there was no way I felt comfortable with it. But I was waiting, and luckily he turned his head and his front shoulder enough to where I was like, that's good. I can for sure get a solid hit on that.
And he's still at like 18 yards, right?
Oh, yeah.
17, 18 yards.
Yeah, after ranging, he's right in that 17, 18-yard range. And so I let one rip and just...
That one I heard.
Yeah.
And I immediately lift the camera up. I'm like, Jason just hit him.
Yep. And it hit him in a great spot from where I saw.
Smoked him.
It wasn't a pass-through, and that had me a little bit nervous. And from the angle, it went in deep. Mm-hmm. But, I started hunting 2 years ago with an arrow, and I've watched a ton of movies and films and all this stuff, listened to a million podcasts. But I was concerned, the arrow didn't do a pass-through. Did it go in deep enough? And in hindsight, it's like, yes, it went in plenty deep. But at the time,
you got both lungs.
But at the time, I was still really concerned. And so at that point, I shot, and he took off maybe 30 yards to kind of the trail-ish.
Yeah.
And I looked back and John was like, John, range him. I'm like, I'm going to do another arrow.
When he was running away and I pull up and bring the camera up, I saw the arrow fly out. I thought it came out, but he broke it. Yeah. When his arm came off to go run, he broke the arrow.
Yep.
But I didn't know exactly where you had hit him until he stopped. And I could hear you being whispering to John.
Yeah.
And I could see right in that pocket where you hit him. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was drool or blood, but he had stuff coming out of his mouth, and but he had just been in a wallow, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if that's blood or water, but there's stuff dripping too. Mm-hmm. So it's like, Jason, it looks like the spot that I could see, you smoked him. I'm just like, he's going to go down.
Yeah,
he's going to be down.
It felt like the right placement and a good shot. At that point, my concern was if it went in deep enough to do what it needed to do. Yeah. But when I asked John, I was like, range him, shoot him again. John ranged. He's like, dude, he's 105 yards at this point. So I guess he went more than 30.
Well, I told him. He was concerned he didn't hit him good. And I said, dude, you slammed him.
You smoked him.
Yeah. That was a perfect shot. I saw blood spray out as soon as he hit him. Knew it was long.
Well, and he only went 100 yards and stopped. And head down, not doing
And he
good.
went slow. He went to that 30 yards and hung up and then moved more. So I knew he was sick.
Yep. And he bedded down.
Yeah.
Started doing the old dying.
Yeah.
It was, and while he's expiring, another bull, almost his exact same size, is coming marching down the hill to come into this wallow.
Yeah. On the side that Sheryl's on.
On the side that Sheryl's on. Bugling, and then he gets down there and he sees your bull down there and he's like, what is he doing down there? And he starts looking around. That's when I started filming him.
Hung up. Yeah,
and I was wondering if, I know he saw my bull, but I also wonder if he kind of could smell that blood. Because now that elk was slightly downwind of my elk.
Yep, he was. And you were kind of still standing down there because you were trying to sneak in to see if you needed a second shot on your bull. So, but he wasn't feeling to the party spirit anymore. And it was funny. He didn't bust out. He would just walk 10, 15 yards and look down, be like, what is he doing down there?
Yeah.
And then he'd walk 15 yards and be like, what's going on? But, and then Dad, you came down.
Well,
I got Emily and us.
Yeah, my perspective from behind the bush. So I heard that first shot and I peeked out because I heard the weird bugle, then a shot, and I peeked out and I saw a glowing knock. that wallow has like a wall to
Yeah.
it, maybe like a 3 or 4 foot wall. And I saw the glowing knock in it, and I thought, oh, my hell. And then I looked, and Jason was drawing back again, and I saw the bull just standing there and figured he'd get a second shot. But Jason came around, came to full draw, and just
was shaking.
Looked like an alcoholic on the 3rd day of sobriety. And I was just in my head screaming, like, calm down, anchor, anchor. And he did it. Like, I saw perfect anchor, and then the shot. Saw it smack and blood. It was intense.
It was so
I was
sweet.
like 25 yards from it too. So
Yeah, you were close.
Yeah, it was awesome.
There was backstory to this is like caffeine. I'd gotten off caffeine. I was like, I don't need any more shake if this moment arrives. So I'd been like,
a little caffeine might have helped. I don't know.
I'd been clean from caffeine for like 2 weeks, and but I do remember like feeling the shake, like oh my gosh, like, just feeling it. But like when he kind of, like I said, turned his head, moved his shoulder, that was the moment where I was like, I like cannot screw this up, because like I have these guys here helping me spend time. I'm going away from home, so the thought was like, you need to make a good shot and get this done. And, ideally a good shot for less pain and all that, a quick death. And so that's when it was like anchored, better, just calmed down and just focused and shot.
And you can tell right before the shot, like all of a sudden it just got tight and snapped it off.
So sweet.
Yeah, it was a good shot.
And you smoked a stud bull.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 years into hunting, 2 years into archery hunting. 2 points. 2 points. You kill a stud bull.
Yeah, couldn't be happier.
It was made an unbelievable shot. It was awesome. Yeah, how was the afterwards? Like, so you have a bull down, you walk up to it.
Yep, and
you were feeling lucky, and sure enough, you were.
Yeah. So I know that's the thing. I texted my wife too, like almost right after when he went off and kind of laid down. I was like, I just shot a bull, and but I mean, just the adrenaline and the moment was just kind of like I was still kind of shaking and just couldn't believe what happened, because it happened so fast.
Yeah,
so fast.
It always does.
It came in, and like looking back over it, it's like you can talk about it for 10 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, but like the moment is like seconds.
Yeah.
Like it all happened in less than like 40 seconds between my first shot and the last shot and everything. It was just so quick. But my brother afterwards, like, so did you have pretty bad buck fever? And I was like, I was probably like 3 heartbeats away from a stroke. I don't know, because it was intense.
Yeah.
It was intense. But like I said, I couldn't be happier with. And the other thing is, because I only had 2 points, I knew I wasn't out to get like the biggest bull I could find. I was like, I want to have a good experience and get like a solid bull.
And you did.
And when I initially saw him peek around the corner, the only thing I really noticed was like, it looks like it has good mass. It's not like a spike, but I wasn't counting. It could have been a 5x5. And even by the time it laid down, I don't even think I had counted. I think you guys were the ones that officially like, I think it's a 6x6.
When he was coming down the road, I was like, it's a 6 point. Jason's going to smoke it.
Yeah.
It was a good bull. I immediately knew it was a good enough bull that at 14 to 17 yards, and I thought you were further up on the hill. I thought you would have been more like 30 yards. So that close, I was just like, when that comes in, that would be really hard not to shoot.
Yeah.
And with 2 points, 2 years archery experience, like, Jason's going to smoke it.
Yeah.
And boy, you smoked it.
It wasn't a question. And it was almost scary realizing, like, when it came in, seeing, like, this is a good bull, realizing, like, it wasn't like, oh, it's a spike, I can rock. Yeah. It was like, no, this is it. Like, I'm doing it. Like, and so
that's awesome.
That part was nuts.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of my favorite things is Jason made the decision on his own. Yep. Sometimes you're out there with the hunter and they're texting you, should I shoot this thing? What should I do? Is it big enough? And that was what I thought.
It was awesome.
I just thought, oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing. It was his bull. He knew it.
Yep.
I mean, it was less than 20 yards. You'd be
And a great bowl.
Yeah, you'd be foolish. I mean, it sort of was delivered right to you. And I think what was funny is me being up on the hill, his buddy coming down. I mean, he was only 10 yards from me. Yeah. And I had the same view of him, and I could see Jason. Let me just back up, because I could see all you guys, and a couple of times I did notice Jason, he's down there, and all of a sudden he's pulling back real slow, and he's lifting it up, and I'm just panicking, looking all over. Where's this bow? And then he puts his bow back down, and I'm thinking, what on earth's going on? And then all of a sudden I see this bowl, and I see Jason, and I'm thinking, where on earth did that bowl come from? Because I couldn't see the trail underneath me. And all of a sudden, it just was, I wished I would have, just as like a professional pulls back his bow. He comes up really slow. He turns, and this bull's just looking around, not even knowing it. Man, I heard that whack.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's a dead bull. And then here comes Timmy down off the hill, and he could see the bull over there laying, and he's, whoa, something ain't right here. And then I think he could see you guys a little bit, and he just slowly started drifting away. And
well, the point you made, I think, was so valid and so interesting. Like, he was 4 minutes away from being the bull down there on the ground.
He was. Yeah. I think he was counting his, oh, my gosh, that 5 minutes earlier he would have been.
Yeah, he didn't know what was going on, but he came to party and then realized he didn't want to.
So the whole moment was just, it was
awesome.
It was.
Well, and Jason, the very next day, you get to eat the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
And how was it?
It was amazing. We made elk heart fajitas. And so I ended up keeping some of the meat with me. I dropped a bunch off, most of it, and I kept the back strap, the heart, and like tenderloin. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. But the pack out was brutal.
So leaving the kill site to go back to camp felt like that was so far. Like, it just would not end. There was that last pole up the hill, and it just kept going. I was like, I swear we did not walk that far.
And I struggled. It was not easy for me. Like, that was an eye-opening experience, like that weight. I didn't feel winded. It was just the weight. My legs are not used to that kind of weight. Yeah. Whatever, however many pounds I had with my bow and stuff at first, but I don't know, 70 pounds, 80 pounds.
Yeah.
So it was an eye-opener for me. Like, I need to do a little more, like, weight training.
Yeah.
And, but that was tough. That was super tough.
Yeah. The crazy thing, so me and Jason went back the next day to get the cape and the head, and which is crazy too. We saw another bull come in, sneak in on us. We didn't know it was there. I looked up because I was trying to get the jaw off, and there's a bull in the wallow again.
You guys are just out in the open working on this bull, and there's another bull in the wallow.
So I snuck up a little closer and got some video. But coming back that day was nothing. Like, we came down the hill, and Jason's like, there's camp. And I looked over and was like, are you kidding me? Why last night did it feel like
it felt like
an
forever.
Eternity?
Yeah. It was.
I think maybe just a long day and being
an adrenaline dump, mainly for you.
Maybe that's what it was. I told my family, I was like, that night, taking that up was like physically maybe the hardest thing I've done. Like, it was so hard for me. But anyways,
that's awesome.
It's part of the experience.
We tagged out, boys.
Yep.
We filled a tag. That feels good. Jason, congratulations on an awesome bowl. And thanks for letting us come along. That was awesome.
Thank you. You guys,
that was awesome.
You guys were crucial to this. Trust me.
But hopefully we'll be gathered here together again to talk about another successful story. Giant spike. We have some spike tags, any bull tags. We've got deer tags.
We're heading to Wyoming.
We're heading to Wyoming with a bull and 3 deer tags. So we got a lot to talk about. Hopefully they're successful stories. But thank you for coming on. Congrats, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time, guys.
Yeah.
Jason, you are indeed a lucky guy. Congratulations on an awesome bull, and thank you again for coming on and sharing your experience with all of us. Thank you all for watching and listening wherever you might be. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Leave us a 5-star review if you would. We'd greatly appreciate it. And don't forget, we're having a giveaway. You can win yourself a canvas cutter burrow duffel and a pair of sheep feet. But for now, bye.